All right, today we are cracking open a really fascinating fictional world to piece together a blueprint. But this isn't for a building, it's for a war. A very different kind of war. So let's get into it.
Just let that sink in for a second. This one line perfectly sums up what it's like to be a student at a place called Ascension High. It's kind of chilling, and it perfectly sets the stage for what's really going on there.
And that right there is the big question we're unpacking. We're going to explore a system that's been put in place not just to distract kids, but to fundamentally alter who they are from the inside out. Okay, so consider this our mission briefing. The source material we're pulling from is called 311 Secret Agents, and our job today? To map out this incredibly complex system of control and the resistance fighting against it inside Ascension High.
First thing you have to understand is the territory. See, Ascension High, it's not really a school. The source makes it clear it's a battlefield. It is the absolute front line in a quiet, hidden war for the hearts and minds, for the very consciousness of its students. And the air on this battlefield? It's literally toxic. The source calls it anti-glow. Now think of it like this invisible spiritual smog that just hangs over the entire campus. Its whole purpose is to drain your energy, dim your inner light, and keep you lost in this hazy digital fog.
But, even in a war like this, there is always a resistance. And our story zeroes in on two undercover agents, Evan and Evelyn. They're posing as regular high school seniors, but their real mission is to fight this system and try to wake everybody up. So you've got Evan and Evelyn, also called the Twin Flames, and they're not going it alone. They're actually getting guidance from these higher cosmic beings. Their whole goal is to find other deep souls, these light bearers, who are trapped in the system and just pull them out of that digital haze. But the system they're fighting? Oh, it is powerful. Incredibly powerful.
So now let's take a look at the enemy's game plan. This whole system of control is run by this mysterious figure, Principal Pent. But it's not about guards and gates. No, this is an invisible architecture, one that's built to target the mind and the spirit directly. Okay, layer one of this system is something called the static pulse. The source paints it as this background hum, this frequency that's being broadcast everywhere in the school, and its only job is to shatter your focus, to break up your thoughts into a million little pieces so that deep, critical thinking becomes pretty much impossible. Now, this next part is wild. The second layer is called the Chronos glitch. The system actually messes with how students perceive time itself, making everything feel like it's speeding up, like it's all frantic. The present moment just becomes a blur, which, as you can imagine, just fuels this constant anxiety and makes it impossible to feel centered. And all of this leads to the system's real goal, what the source calls the attention heist. See, it's not just about distracting the students. It's way deeper than that. Every single time a student looks at a screen, their spiritual energy, their light, is literally being siphoned away. The distraction isn't the point. It's the tool for harvesting their energy.
So, you might be asking, how does the system enforce all this on a one-to-one level? Well, it uses what are called snare actors. And these are not just your average high school bullies. No, these are specific personality types, almost like characters, that get deployed with a specific tactical purpose anytime our agents get close to waking someone up.
The system really relies on three main types. First up, you've got Diesel. He's all about animalistic adrenaline. He uses rage and dominance to stir up chaos and ego. Then you have the total opposite, Abby, who pushes passive complacency. She uses toxic positivity and fear to keep everyone in line. And finally, there's Rev, the face of digital apathy, who just constantly pushes the idea that nothing really matters, so why even try?
Let's just zero in on those first two for a second. Diesel uses this tactic called infernal heat. It's this aggressive, loud, high-energy chaos that just drowns out your spirit. Abby, on the other hand, uses a dampening mist. It's quiet, it's passive, and it just smothers your spirit with fear and shallow sentimentality. So you have two totally opposite approaches, right? But they both lead to the exact same outcome, keeping you asleep.
So against a system this slick, this pervasive, how do you even begin to fight back? Well, our agents don't use fists or weapons. They use something the source calls the 7 rays, and it's basically their toolkit for this spiritual war. Each of these 7 rays isn't a thing. It's more like a specific spiritual frequency, a virtue.
You've got the blue ray for proper action, the yellow ray for wisdom, the pink ray for love, and so on. The agents learn how to tap into and broadcast these frequencies to basically dismantle the traps that the system sets for everyone.
Here's a perfect example of how that works. The school has this thing called the Apex Protocol. It's basically a social ranking system that rewards being aggressive and dominating other people. The specific counter for that? The blue ray. It's the frequency of proper action, which completely flips the script and says, nope, true power comes from mastering yourself, not controlling others. It's a direct counterattack on a spiritual level.
Or how about this one? The system pushes something called the vanity snare, which gets all the students obsessed with their online persona, their synthetic image. The weapon against that is the pink ray, the frequency of divine love. It just cuts right through all that superficial stuff and reminds the soul that real value, real beauty, is about being sincere and transparent, not having a perfectly managed brand.
So after an entire school year of fighting these battles, using these rays, and trying to get through to students, the results, well, they look pretty bad. Which brings up a really big question. Was this whole mission just a total failure?
Let's just look at the hard numbers. After everything they went through, battling the static pulse, the snare actors, all of it, the number of students that Evan and Evelyn actually managed to wake up and recruit was a big fat 0. Not a single person.
And right at that moment, when it all feels like a complete and utter loss, the entire story gets flipped on its head with this one simple line. We didn't lose, Evan. We mapped the enemy. It turns out the mission was never about recruiting. It was about gathering intelligence. This is the blueprint they built. They found out that the whole system is built on a war on silence. They figured out how something called passive grace is used to make people feel okay with being lazy. They saw the ventriloquist tactic that makes addiction feel like a choice, and they confirmed the system's ultimate goal, to completely replace a person's real soul with a fake synthetic image. And all of this leaves us with one final big question to chew on, a question that comes right out of these themes. The students at Ascension High were always performing for this imaginary audience, made up of their friends and social media algorithms. It kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? What sort of invisible systems or imaginary audiences are influencing the world we live in right now?